Everyone knows that the last couple of years have been very difficult economically, not only in this country, but around the world. And we've faced a crisis, and a lot of people have just suffered financially. And so often I'm asked when I travel, when I speak, when I coach, people will say, well, John, what can I do? How can I readjust? How can I adjust? How can I come back? And I'd like to talk to you about this because during difficult times, that's when leaders are in demand the very most. Think about it. When things are not going well, that's when people are looking for something that would give them security and give them direction. I remember talking to a leader one time, and I was encouraging him to move his people forward, and I could tell he was very hesitant. And he looked at me, and he said, my people aren't ready yet. And I smiled and I said, of course they're not ready. I've never known people to be ready to move forward or do the right thing on their own. I said, that's why you're the leader. In fact, that's job security. The very fact that the people are uncertain and the very fact that people are questioning and are going through difficult times, that's the greatest moment for a leader, for a coach, for a speaker to step forward. Because that's when people really need you. That's when people are looking for you. And that's when people really want you. Now, the question is, as a leader, as a communicator, as a coach, how can I add value to people during this very difficult time? I have done a lot of teaching on that in these last couple years, and I have a very popular speech that I use sometimes, basically on how to help people during this difficult times. And I don't have the time to give the entire talk to you, but if it's okay, I would like to give 3 or 4 points that would be very helpful, I think, to help you add value to people during economic difficult times. The first thing I would encourage you to do is to help them face reality. Max De Pree said the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. And what happens during difficult times is when it hits us, we have a tendency to freeze. People, when they're uncertain or bad news is coming their way, have a tendency just to kind of stand still and hold on, kind of waiting for the storm to pass. And the second thing that happens is that people begin to deny reality. They begin to act as if something else was different than what it really is. Here's what I've always known about leadership and about coaching, coming alongside of people. You can't take people where they need to go until you find out where they are. And they have to find out where they are. And reality helps us to kind of discover, here is where I am. These are the facts. These are the issues that I'm going to have to now understand and deal with them. Now, it's not easy, but that's, again, a leadership, coaching, mentoring, speaking responsibility. And we don't do ourselves or the people that we come alongside of any favor by somehow kind of skipping step 1 and trying to get over here to step 2. You can't correct something that needs to be corrected until you know what the issue is. So helping people face reality is the foundation for making what I consider to be positive change. Change is based upon reality. Dreams are built on reality. We think of what we want to become, and we think, okay, well, let's dream, let's think big, let's not have any kind of limitations. But the foundation of dreams, the foundation of all growth is reality. And if that foundation isn't solid and strong, there's nothing to build on, there's nothing to stand on, and by all means, whatever you are standing on, if it's not reality, it will crash and burn on you. So, that's step 1, help them face reality. The second thing to help people coming alongside of them and to add value to them is to help them to believe in themselves. Because what happens during uncertainty is that our self-confidence and our belief in ourselves many times begins to shrink. A lot of people, the outside circumstances control how they feel on the inside. I have an expression that I use a lot of time when I'm teaching leadership, and that is that as a leader, we want to become bigger on the inside than we are on the outside. And the reason for that is very simple. If my character, if my faith, if the inside of John Maxwell is strong and solid and real and based on foundations of faith, etc., then when difficult times come my way, I'll be able to stand because I'm bigger on the inside than I'm on the outside. And that's what we want to accomplish in your life. That's why we come alongside of you and work with you and help you in coaching and speaking. We want you to be bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. But reality is most people, they're much bigger on the outside than they are on the inside. Now what happens is the moment that the outside is negative or becomes disastrous, their inside world begins to just fall apart. And one of the greatest gifts that we can give people is to begin to help them to build the inside and become an inside-out type of a person. And belief in oneself is essential to that inside development. I've never known a person that developed a strong inside that didn't believe in themselves. And so that starts with a core belief and faith that no matter what I'm going through, I can survive this. I can do more than survive this. I can learn from this. I can do more than learn from this. I can even build on this and become the person that I really want to be. And coming alongside of somebody and helping them with that is very important. And I have a phrase that I use because I love this phrase, and I believe it to be true because I've practiced it over the years. And that is, I say that during difficult times, let people borrow your belief in them. You say, John, what's that mean? Well, it means very simple. They've lost their belief in themselves. So you come alongside with confidence, faith, belief, and you let them borrow it for a while. They can. And it's a wonderful gift that you can give them. Now, it can't last forever. Nobody can live on borrowed belief. They, after a while, have to own it for themselves. But there are times during difficult crisis that a person just needs someone who's confident, strong, and has the ability to convey that in such a way that other people can live off of it and thrive off of it. I can remember as a leader in San Diego and going through a major relocation project of where we had to raise millions and millions of dollars. And I was gone on an international trip for about 3.5 weeks, and I came back and I saw my leaders and we met together, and I could immediately begin to sense their hesitancy, and I could see that they were fearful, that they were questioning, they weren't sure. And that morning I remember pouring myself into them because I realized they needed to borrow a little bit of my belief. They had to have a little bit of my confidence. And you cannot give what you do not have. So when you add value to people in this kind of an economy, it can't be a fake belief. It has to be an inward assurance that you really do have the resources and the ingenuity and the creativity to get through difficult times. And you not only can do it, but you can help other people do it also. Let me give you a classic example. It's probably a great example because it's so well known by people in the sports world. It's an old story, but it's the Super Bowl where Joe Namath, when the New York Jets were the underdogs against, at that time, what they called the Baltimore Colts, much favored in the Super Bowl, and Joe Namath said, I guarantee that we'll win that game. I guarantee a victory. I was playing golf with Joe one day, and I asked him about that. I said, Joe, tell me about your guaranteeing victory. I said, now, were you kind of huffing and puffing? He said, no, not at all, John. He said, I knew that we could win that game. But he said, I also knew that my fellow teammates did not think we could win that game. And I'd look around the locker room and I kept asking myself, what am I going to do to help my teammates get over this not sure we can win the game kind of mindset? And he said, I came to the conclusion that I had to make some kind of an outlandish statement to put us out on the end of the limb, out on the edge, where we really had to produce and really had to stick together as a team and believe in ourselves and for us to be able to produce and do what we wanted to do as a football team. Well, what was Joe Namath doing? He was loaning his belief to others. It's possible for you to do that. And what a gift it is for somebody who hasn't matured to the level of having their own belief system yet intact and solid. So, you help them face reality, what is, but then you also come alongside and you help them to believe in themselves, what can be. Oh, you can see a pattern evolving here now. Okay, this is where I am. It's not good, but this is what I believe, and oh, this is better. The third thing to do to really help people in a downtime economy is to help them understand the value of relationships. If there's ever a time when people need each other, it's during difficult times. Okay, when things are going well, maybe you can kind of go alone for a period of time. But during difficult times, there is a need for interdependence and to value teamwork and to value relationships. If there was ever a time that I needed you, it's during a difficult economy. And there was ever a time you needed me. We need to come together and pull our resources together. And again, in my 17 laws of teamwork, one of the laws is the law of Mount Everest that says as the challenge escalates, the need for teamwork elevates. In other words, as the challenge becomes greater, the need to get a team around you, that need becomes also greater because you can't do it by yourself. You can't climb Mount Everest by yourself. You can't tackle big projects. You can't handle this economy by yourself. And so this is where we begin to be dependable. And by the way, when I talk about valuing relationships and teamwork and cultivating relationships, the first person to help should be you. In other words, make a deposit before withdrawal. Now, when in times of panic, the tendency is we all want to do withdrawals. We all want to run to friends and team members and say, give me, help me, I need you. And I would just say, swim upstream, go the opposite way. And in this kind of a setting, you be the one who deposits into other people's lives. And you say, well, John, I'm trying to hold on. I'm not sure I can make it. I understand that. But be a river, not a reservoir. Start giving. Start sharing. Start depositing. Start helping. And allow the person to be on the receiving end, and they will immediately begin to understand the value of needing each other, working together. And it's true, I've said the statement many, many times, I say it to you now, teamwork makes the dream work. And when you come to a difficult time, the better people you have around you, the greater success you'll have within you. And so value those relationships and foster those relationships and appreciate those relationships and deposit in those relationships. It's a great way to help a person during a very, very difficult time. Number 4. The fourth thing that you and I can do to come along somebody to help them during an economic downturn is to guard and watch your attitude. Our attitude determines our altitude. And during difficult times, what happens to the attitude? It just goes right down the tubes. There's a relationship between good times and good attitudes and bad times and bad attitudes. In fact, I always say during good times, you don't even have to be good to have a good attitude. You're just living off the gravy. So you're feeling good and you're doing good, and so your attitude's good. But when things begin to be adverse and, come against us, the attitude has a tendency to slip. In fact, I know this for a fact because I've written on attitudes, I've taught on attitudes. And this may surprise you, but there are times when my attitude needs an adjustment. There are times when I become very discouraged, and all of a sudden I have to do self-talk. I have to, like my wife says sometimes when my attitude needs to be an adjustment, she says, John, go read your books. Just go read your books. That's so disgusting to have to go read my books and read that stuff and make myself again do the right thing and think the right thing when I sometimes don't want to or don't feel like it. But it's a tremendous gift to help a person not only see reality and believe in themselves and rely on others to help them, but to begin to develop an attitude that during difficult times becomes a friend. Because you see, our attitude is either our greatest asset or it's our greatest liability. It's the best thing we got going for us or it's the worst thing we got working in us. And when the attitude begins to slip, sometimes we need somebody to help us catch that attitude. Isn't it true? I think you'll find this. I know I find this true of myself. When my attitude begins to slip, sometimes I need somebody around me, a close friend, an inner circle member, who'll come and say, hey, John, you need to check yourself here. Because sometimes that attitude begins to be a way of thinking, and it begins to sour our perspective. And we don't even realize it's happening until somebody comes alongside of us and just says, hey, you need an attitude adjustment. Now, here's what the attitude will do for us. In fact, I have often said that attitude isn't everything, but it's the main thing that makes a difference in a person's life. So is attitude going to turn the economy around? Not at all. Is attitude going to make your real estate more valuable than it is? No, not at all. Is it going to help your home price? No, it really isn't going to help your home price. But it's not what happens to us, it's what happens in us that determines the outcome of almost everything within our lives. And what I have learned a long time ago is I cannot always determine what will happen to me. I don't think you nor I determined that the economic downturn would be a part of our life. We didn't even want it. It's not what happens to me, it's what happens in me that makes the difference. And the great leaders, the great speakers, the great coaches are ones who've gone through those difficult times. And out of those difficult times, they've had and maintained a wonderful attitude, which brings me to my last point. And this one is so important that I want to make sure I do a good job teaching it for just a minute or two. And that is number 5. When you walk along somebody that's going through difficult financial times, constantly point to and ask them this question: what are you learning during this time? You see, our tendency is to look at our losses. And it does no good to look at our losses. Just like, to be honest with you, it does no good to look at our gains. I know people who just think about their success or their gains, and there's very little value there. We just kind of want to party and basically eat, drink, and be merry and pretty much probably lose what we gain because we're not careful. Well, there's a tendency for people to become submerged into their losses and get a woe is me and what happened and I'm a victim and why did this happen and get in that kind of that malaise of negativity that doesn't do them any good either. Now, the question is not, what have you lost? The question is, what have you learned? And let me tell you something. If you aren't learning in the midst of your losses will continue. That I know for sure. What stops the losing is not that the economy turned around. I don't think the economy is going to turn around for the next couple of years. When people think, well, I'm just kind of waiting out the storm and probably at the end of this year it'll get better first of next year, I don't think so. I think we're in a pretty bad economy for a pretty good period of time. But here's what I do know. Regardless whether it's a short time or a long time, our attitude is the difference maker. And regardless of where we are and what we have lost, we have got to ask ourselves, what am I learning through this process? And let me tell you something. Not only do you ask yourself, what have you learned through the process, but then you ask yourself, after I have learned it, how does it change me and how can I pass it on to others? I love those two questions. How is it changing me? In other words, what am I learning from my losses and how am I adjusting to my losses so that I can say I am changing myself? And then what am I passing on to others? The first one works on you, which makes you do better in the economy. And the second one adds value to someone else. You see, when the downturn financially began, not everybody, but about everybody was losing. Here's what I know. When things are going bad, about everything goes bad for about most of the people. Just as when everything is going good, just about everything goes good for most of the people. And you're just riding the wave. You're riding the wave in the good times, you're kind of going downhill in the bad times, but you're just about in the same situation as everybody else. But we are now into this economic downturn long enough for me to tell you with great confidence, there's some people that are doing quite well, even in a bad economy. Some people are doing what you're considering doing. They're saying, okay, I can't just have my regular profession. I've got to do some other things. I think I'm going to learn to coach and have a little bit of added income there, or I'm going to learn how to do some speaking. And they're kind of taking matters in their own hands, and they're kind of doing some other things that help kind of supplement that income, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But what I know is very simple, that during this time, there are some people that are doing well, and there are some people that are not doing well. Now, why is it some are doing well and others are not? I will almost guarantee you the ones that are doing well, they've learned and they've adjusted. And those who are not doing well, they have not learned and they have not adjusted. You see, in the beginning, we were all caught off guard. When Alan Greenspan, who is kind of like the Mr. Financial Man that everyone respected, looks at the Senate and says, I didn't see this coming. Can I tell you something? If Alan Greenspan didn't see it coming, John Maxwell didn't see it coming, and probably you didn't see it coming either. Okay, bad news. It hit us, knocked us down. We've got to be like my friend who said, I'm never down. I'm either up or I'm getting up. And I think we are in the getting up phase. And if you'll just share with yourself and with others the 5 things I've just shared with you, it won't help people from not getting knocked down, but it will give them the courage to get back up. And when you think of coaching, when you think of leading, when you think of casting vision and speaking, what is it? It's the ability to help people that are being knocked down get back up. So, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, start walking. And by the way, as you're starting to move forward, stop long enough to pick someone else up. Let them take the journey with you.